Number 10. Mystique. Raven Darkholme, also known as the villainous Mystique, can be very dangerous for a variety of reasons. One of the biggest ones being her ability to shapeshift. In an instant, she can become someone else entirely, and you never even know it. She can mimic every trait, even someone's voice. It's crazy. On top of that, she's also a highly skilled fighter, who usually uses her skills for some not so nice mutants. Although, she has dabbled on the side of good every now and then. But, like her power, she's constantly changing, and that makes her even more dangerous. Number 9. Storm. Storm shouldn't come as a surprise. She is not only incredibly powerful, but is also a fan favorite. She has the mutant ability of weather manipulation. She can literally create massive blizzards, electrical storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, even tsunamis. Like, if that doesn't scream dangerous, then you need to get your definition of dangerous looked at. Seriously, not only is she dangerous on the power side, but she's also powerful in a lot of other ways. One of those being, she was once one of the leaders of Wakanda after marrying T'Challa, aka Black Panther. So she is someone you don't want to mess with. Unless you're crazy, then, just go right ahead. Number 8. Cable. General audiences recently became a lot more familiar with Cable because of his appearance in Deadpool 2. Cable, also known as Nathan Summers, is the time-traveling son of Scott Summers, Cyclops, and Madeline Pryor, who was later discovered to be a clone of Jean Grey. Man, the X-Men have some crazy love storylines. As I mentioned earlier, Cable is a time traveler, but along with that, his powers include, telepathic illusions, telepathic cloak, mind link, telepathic camouflage, mind control, telekinesis, and he has a cybernetic eye implant, which can fire a very powerful laser. So powerful that it has even destroyed one of the Avengers' jets at one point. Number 7. Deadpool. Wade Wilson. Who doesn't love that guy? He's just awesome. Just don't get on his bad side, and you'll be okay. You know what? Never mind. I think it's impossible to stay off his bad side because he can just hate you in a split second for no reason at all. He's unpredictable. To go along with that, he's a highly skilled mercenary and has one of the best healing factors in the Marvel Universe, which makes him almost impossible to kill. But he has fought Wolverine multiple times. One of the first times was in Wolverine issue 88. And in that fight, Deadpool won by stabbing his swords right into Logan's lungs. Ah, man. That hurts even to say that. Wolverine got his revenge though in Cable and Deadpool issue number 44. The list goes on and on. But let's not forget what their most famous fight of all is, right? Can you guess it? Okay, I'll just tell you. It's their fight from X-Men Origins Wolverine. One of the greatest fights in cinematic history. Okay, you know what? I'm not even gonna joke about that. It's just too hard. Okay, deep breath. Okay. Alright, I'm good. Alright. Let's just continue. Let's just keep moving on. Number 6. Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a very, very dangerous dude. Not only is he one of the X-Men's greatest villains, but he's also believed to be one of the very first mutants, ever. That's just creepy and cool. He was born in Egypt around 3000 BC. Now, Apocalypse has what he believes to be a very simple philosophy, that only the strong should be able to survive, and that's it. It doesn't just apply to mutants either. It could be anyone. If you're weak, just get out of town because Apocalypse has no plans for you. He even turned Wolverine into one of the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse, the Horsemen of Death. Aside from that, the dude is basically immortal. He has super strength, teleportation, telekinesis, telepathy, self-molecular manipulation. So you can say he's pretty dangerous. There's a reason the X-Men fear him so much. Number 5. Legion. Legion, also known as David Haller, is a really interesting one. For the longest time, he was really unknown to anyone that wasn't a hardcore X-Men fan. But after getting his own critically acclaimed show on FX, he became fairly popular. David is the son of Charles Xavier. He has a form of dissociative identity disorder, which leads into his name, Legion, for his legion of personalities. The interesting thing about him is that his personalities have different mutant abilities. So, for example, one could have telekinesis, another telepathy, another super strength. It's kind of insane. It makes him really powerful, but also incredibly dangerous. You would have no idea what kind of fight you'd be getting yourself into. One moment he could be on your good side, but then a split second, he's against you with a completely new ability. It's that level of unpredictability that is truly terrifying. Now, Legion also leads us into the next person on our list pretty perfectly. Number 4, Charles Xavier. Yeah, his dad, the founder of the X-Men, good old Professor X. Now, Charles and Logan are almost always on the same side, so it's very unlikely that, they would get into a fight. But if they did, it would be really interesting. Charles is one of the most powerful telepaths in the Marvel Universe. Not only that, he's also one of the smartest people in the Marvel Universe. Put those two things together and you have a very dangerous combo. He can create, telepathic illusions, create a mental link which becomes even more powerful when he's plugged into Cerebro. He can also use his abilities to control the minds of other people. Charles has even taken over someone else's mind completely where he has been able to control their body. Like, it's kind of insane. And it just goes to show why you really don't want to get on his bad side. But luckily, he usually uses his powers for good and helps out so many mutants in the process. Although, he has made some very questionable decisions along the way. But I mean, who hasn't, right? Number 3, Scarlet Witch. Even though it has changed, I'm still considering Scarlet Witch to be a mutant. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just, I have to. It will be forever ingrained in my brain that she's a mutant. And I don't think anything will ever change that. But, back to the main point, she's super dangerous. Like, almost wiped out every mutant in existence with a single word, dangerous. Yeah, she's literally responsible for millions of mutants losing their powers during the House of M storyline. Not only that, but she is also one of the strongest magic users in the universe. She can use chaos magic to warp reality and is a very, very skilled fighter. Throw in that she's also the daughter of Magneto and, that's a pretty dangerous individual. I mean, even look at her in her live action appearances. She was able to take on Thanos in Endgame to the point where she almost probably would have killed him if it wasn't for, his ship starting to fire. And I mean, Kevin Feige has said that Wanda is one of the most powerful characters in the MCU. So that makes 2 different universes where she is dangerous and powerful. That definitely tells you something. Number 2, Jean Grey. Everyone knows how powerful Jean Grey is, whether it's on her own or when she was, Dark Phoenix. There's a reason why even Charles Xavier has feared her. Her powers are off the charts. Over the years, she's not only taken on some of the biggest, scariest villains in the Marvel Universe, but also as heroes. Most notably, during the Dark Phoenix storyline, which is one of the most famous comic stories of all time. Fans just can't get enough of it. Even without the Phoenix Force, Jean has telepathy, telekinesis, memory alteration, so basically she can erase, restore, or even implant memories into someone. She could literally erase someone's memories and make them a completely different person if she just wanted to. Of course, she wouldn't, unless it was like a life or death situation, but that option is always on the table. Number 1, Magneto. I've mentioned before how scary Magneto can be. It's not just because of his powers, it's his ability to manipulate people. He's crazy good at it. And if you need proof, just look at his army of followers. People trust him and will give their lives for him. And it's usually not even out of fear. It sometimes can be, but it's usually because they want to fight for him. I mean, his powers also really help. He has the ability to control all forms of magnetism, which he mostly uses to manipulate all forms of metal, including adamantium. He also has trained himself to fight off telepaths, so they can't control or use him. I mean, with all that, it's not hard to see why he's the X-Men's greatest foe, and one of the most dangerous people in the Marvel Universe.
Number 10, Cyclops. The rivalry between Scott and Logan is legendary at this point. And it's not just all about Jean either. Even when she's not there, they still can't get along. She's usually not there because she's temporarily dead. It's fine, it's a thing. The fact that they can't get along has a lot to do with their different base personalities. Scott is not only an authority figure, but someone who leads through opposition a lot, and he could care less if you like him or not. Wolverine responds super poorly to authority and is much more of a let's get this done, not a let's think this to death kind of person. Also a bit of a lone wolf. So they fight, be it verbally or physically, but this fight was actually because Wolverine was being influenced by the villain Sauron. Because of this, he began to hallucinate, seeing his teammates as enemies instead. This led to him tussling with Cyclops. While Wolverine was able to pin Cyclops, Scott was able to blast him off and far away and keep the fight on his own terms. People forget how strong Scott's optic blasts are. They're much more than just pretty lights. Number 9, Gambit. Now, unlike Cyclops, Wolverine and Gambit can get along and have enjoyed an easygoing friendship at times. So when these two face off, it's oft times more along the lines of intense sparring sessions, it's more like let's see what we each can do. Such as in Uncanny X-Men number 273, where they fought in the Danger Room before it was a person that Xavier had been keeping trapped after it developed sentience. Dark stuff. Gambit's not above fighting dirty, which he does here. They're on par, which is already saying something. Old Man Logan. This is when Gambit realizes that he can make the Danger Room kinda psych Wolverine out, and he makes it create Lady Deathstrike within it. Now, Wolverine has some pretty complicated feelings about her, and so this leads to Gambit being able to overpower him. Well played or dirty pool. You decide. Number 8, Beast. That's right, even Dr. Hank McCoy is getting on the action of defeating Wolverine. Though it wasn't by choice. Beast and Wolverine have a pretty good relationship, so this happened while Beast was brainwashed. This occurred in the Here Comes Tomorrow storyline. Beast was taken over by an entity called Sublime. Sublime is a sentient bacterial life form. Sublime finds it difficult to infect mutants, and as a result, there are rumors that he is the cause of the societal hysteria surrounding them. Although, let's be fair, in some cases it's not hysteria. When Sublime had control of Beast, it also harnessed the Phoenix Force within him, and so when Logan went to take him on, Beast was able to negate his healing factor, turning him just into a guy with some enhanced reflexes and adamantium skeleton, which is still a lot, but not as much as it could be. Beast actually killed him in this encounter, and Jean had to go back in time to ensure the incident never took place in order for him to survive it. Number 7. Storm. Storm can control the weather. She has been worshipped as a god. There's something very wrong with the world if she can't defeat Wolverine. Now, while Storm and Wolverine may at times have a romance that's kind of so out there, at least at first glance, that I love it, this didn't stop her from killing him in X-Men Forever. This was a series that in a very noirist fashion opens with a dead Wolverine. He was the shock kill, the gasp at the beginning. Who could kill Wolverine? Well, it turned out that was an evil Storm. That's who. But why though, you may be asking? Well, keep asking, because the series was cancelled, so the answer was never revealed. Number 6. Kitty Pryde, aka Shadowcat. Kitty is a very powerful mutant, but she wasn't always perceived that way. Her depiction has grown over time as people have really come to ponder and appreciate just how truly terrifying a phasing ability is. Kitty taking out Wolverine shouldn't really be much of a shock. In a what if story entitled What If Wolverine Enemy of the State, Kitty would kill Wolverine. In this story, Wolverine had fallen under Hydra control, and he was proving quite the danger, killing his former friends and allies. As a result, Kitty ended up engaging with him. Since he was so out of control, she stuck her hand through his head and re-solidified it inside, destroying his brain, and her hand was stuck in his skull since he had chopped it off. And as a result, he couldn't get it out and he couldn't heal. Ouch, and also gross. Number 5. Apocalypse. Now you would think you wouldn't just try to take on an essentially immortal, terrifying, powerful mutant with just your claws. Yeah, you might think that, but you're not Wolverine. Ultimate Wolverine decided to take on Apocalypse head on. But I mean, a lot of things happen in the Ultimate Universe. Needless to say, it does not go well for Wolverine. Apocalypse is pretty similar between 616 and 1610. Wolverine gets some good hits in, but with Apocalypse's pedigree, healing factor, and other powers, Wolverine gets pretty badly beaten. Number 4. Magneto. We've talked about this many a time here on Top 10 Nerd. Magneto once ripped out Wolverine's adamantium skeleton, just separated it from his body, pulled the metal right out through the skin. While this didn't kill him, it did put him out of commission for a while. This action, while gruesome, also gave some that actually makes a whole lot of sense. Why hasn't he done that before now? That's because he was being nice. Nice guy Magneto. This action proved to be the breaking point for Charles, who erased Eric's memory using his telepathic powers. Actually, he just erased the whole self as a person. This action would unleash a darkness in Charles, and also unknown to him at the time, merge their two consciousnesses together, eventually creating the being known as Onslaught. Number 3. Speaking of Onslaught, here he is. Once the fusion of Charles and Magneto was complete, the world was graced with Onslaught, an event that still has mixed reviews to this day. Well, however you felt about it, Onslaught was for a time described as beyond Omega level. People weren't going up against him one-on-one. No, you went in teams, and sometimes team-up teams, like the Avengers and the Fantastic Four. Wolverine against Onslaught, like a fly being swatted. Number 2. Proteus. What I'll always remember most about Proteus is Cyclops throwing coffee on Wolverine after. Proteus is the extremely powerful son of Moira McTaggart, too powerful to even boast a conventional physical form. Proteus can bend matter and reality to his will, so the best solution is obviously to take him on head on. Just jump right in there. Both Wolverine and Nightcrawler attempt this, and let's just say it goes horribly wrong. Proteus just completely unmakes them, warps them, turns them into goo and ooze, and then warps the world around them. Wolverine is incredibly shaken by this encounter, for obvious reasons, and it causes Nightcrawler to have a crisis of faith. Cyclops needs Wolverine to fight, so he throws coffee on him. You have to forge your own path as a leader. Number 1. Wolverine. No, I don't mean like his demons or something poetic like that. I mean another time-traveling version of himself. Now, we've had a couple of versions straight up murder each other for the greater good, although some would argue it's always for the greater good because one of these with a zombie, you just gotta really decide. Play it by ear, basically. In the Age of Ultron, which is completely different from the MCU film, no comparison at all, really, Wolverine ended up in a bit of of a paradox, leaving the world with 2 Wolverines at the same time. And that's just one Wolverine too many, so one had to go. Wolverine murdered himself actually more than once in this arc, always from behind. I don't know, just there's something about that. Like, come on, look yourself in the eye.
Number 10, Omega Red. While Omega Red has also lost to Wolverine in the past, he's also had his fair share of victories against him. Omega Red initially proved almost too powerful to Wolverine, especially when it came to the use of death spores, which weakened him. There was a time when Omega Red successfully captured the hero, and he only succeeded in surviving by getting help to escape, unfit to take on Omega Red alone. More recently in the comics, Omega Red surfaced wanting to join Krakoa, but he was actually revealed to be in league with Dracula, and in fact helped Dracula to get his hands on Wolverine's blood, enabling the villain to walk in the sun. Since then, Omega Red has chosen to portray Dracula being truthful with the mutants and becoming their true ally, but Logan of course still finds it hard to trust him. He doesn't really believe he's the true ally. Perhaps because Wolverine himself remembers all the times that Omega Red has stabbed him in the front and the back and just basically stabbed him all around with his carbonadium tentacles. Number 9, Mysterio. Mysterio in an alternate reality completely defeats Wolverine, and in the most horrible way. In the Old Man Logan continuity, Mysterio manipulated Wolverine, getting him to fight against and kill all the X-Men, explaining how this could have happened given all their amazing abilities by claiming that his friends would likely hesitate to take him out. Wolverine at the time thought he was taking on a bunch of supervillains who had invaded the mansion, and Mysterio also claims that Wolverine's ego is kinda to blame for him accepting the illusion. After all, Wolverine believing that he could have possibly taken on all of these supervillains himself all at once does seem pretty arrogant. I gotta say, I kind of agree with Mysterio here. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists where we get to tell you stories about people kicking other people's butts, I love telling these stories, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Sabretooth. Sabretooth has beaten Logan so many times that I've personally lost count. Sometimes it seems as though Victor's sole purpose has been to make Wolverine suffer. Case in point, how it became a tradition for Sabretooth to go and mess up Wolverine once a year on his birthday. Sabretooth has also been the mastermind behind a great deal of psychological plots to mess with Logan, including at one point pitting his son Daken against him, forcing Wolverine to kill his own son. Wolverine thought this was how it had to be at the time, but he would actually later learn that it all happened due to the machinations of Sabretooth. People don't often think about how smart Sabretooth is, but he's pretty crafty. Number 7, Mystique. Mystique is one of those villains you don't want to underestimate because, well, it's really dangerous to do so. Case in point, why do I say case in point so much? Who's been saying that to me that I've been putting this in my script? An example being when Wolverine thought he had killed her and would never see her again, only for her to return having been resurrected by the Hand to get revenge on Wolverine for killing her. She not only defeated him in a physical sense, but also in a mental sense, using him to get information and also to mess with his head when she posed as Yukio. She really messed with him. But that's Mystique for you. Number 6, Spore. While Spore was an insanely powerful villain who did end up defeated in the end, it wasn't actually Wolverine that did the defeating in this scenario. Though he did fight against Spore, Spore appears in one of the earlier stories in Wolverine Volume 2 and was created by Archie Goodwin and John Byrne. It was an ancient entity who first appeared in issue 21, where we learned that the drug that was being used to increase the strength of Roundhouse at the cost of his sanity was actually a part of that villain, and that using that drug was kind of how it infected its victims and was able to move more into the physical world through them. Spore, it turned out, was an ancient bioweapon created by the Deviants long ago that had laid dormant on planet Earth after requiring the strength of a Celestial in order to be defeated the first time around. Although Wolverine struggled to defeat this enemy, the possibly mutant healer Sister Salvation managed to use her powers to defeat it, cleansing Spore permanently, but at great cost, with her hands and possibly ability to heal becoming dramatically damaged afterwards. But Wolverine couldn't have done that alone. He needed the Sister Salvation backup for that one. Number 5, Madeline Pryor. Another enemy who Wolverine likely wouldn't stand a chance against is Madeline Pryor. In the What If Inferno issue, we get to see what would happen if Madeline Pryor had won the day and she and Sim basically turned Wolverine into their little pet, unleashing his feral side and making him a complete monster. And I really do mean a complete monster. The hero doesn't even stand a chance against their influence as they help him to give in to the darker side of himself that he's always been working so hard to repress. It's even worse than losing a battle or his life, because in this story, Wolverine loses his morality and basically his humanity. I think that's worse. Is that worse than death? I think it's worse than death. If you like lose entirely who you are. Number 4. Dracula. Dracula is a long-standing villain for the X-Men and Wolverine. As we discussed earlier with Omega Red, the villain recently managed to best Wolverine by concocting a plan to capture him and use his blood to power up himself and his other loyal vampires, forcing Omega to become his undercover agent on Krakoa. Of course, in the end, Omega Red would turn against him, allowing Wolverine and the other mutants to strike back, but during that first story of the new series back in issue 1, Wolverine saw himself pretty heartily defeated at the hands of Dracula, and what made it worse is that he didn't really even understand at the time that he had been playing right into Dracula's hands. Number 3. Magneto. Magneto is of course another major supervillain who bested Wolverine. He was the one responsible for transforming him into a feral version of himself, stripping Wolverine of the adamantium that coated his skeleton. This was a huge part of us learning more about Wolverine's abilities and his power set. This is when it was revealed that his claws were actually bone claws and they were themselves coated. We also learned here that he had the capacity to be intensely feral. I mean, we'd always known that Wolverine had a wild side, a feral side. It had been alluded to in the comics, but we didn't know just how wild Logan could be. Don't worry though, although Wolverine lost all of his adamantium in the fight against Magneto and his nose, Professor X made sure that Magneto paid for what he'd done, and that he could never hurt anyone again by completely cutting off his mind, in essence kinda leaving Magneto still physically alive but brain dead. It should also be noted that Magneto has killed Wolverine many times across multiple different realities and timelines. Number 2. Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a villain that Wolverine has faced across many different realities, whether with a team or on his own. In some realities, Wolverine has managed to eventually win the war against Apocalypse, but has also lost battles here and there along the way. In the X-Men animated series from the 90s, we see no exception, as Wolverine attempts to take on Apocalypse alongside the X-Men. When it's his turn to strike, he completely misses Apocalypse with his claws, who manages to escape along with most of his horsemen. Kind of embarrassing. Number 1. Dark Phoenix. While Jean Grey would likely never want to hurt Wolverine, and he has honestly almost killed her on a few occasions across the multiverse, always to her benefit of course, usually, to avoid her having to suffer. When Dark Phoenix emerges, it's quickly made apparent just how much stronger this persona and force is in comparison to Wolverine. When the darker side of Phoenix Force makes itself known at one point during Phoenix Endsong, Wolverine doesn't stand a chance against it. In fact, he only survives his fight with the Dark Phoenix because he fits into her plan, with her aiming to use him as bait. It does seem as though he succeeds in weakening the Dark Phoenix, but once again, this seems to all be part of the Phoenix Force's plan, allowing her to take a more active role as she works towards getting what she wants, which she thinks at the time is Cyclops and his unlimited energy source, his optic blasts, but in reality what Phoenix really wants is to feel whole again and feel loved. What a lovely little moral at the end of that story.